Get to know your Lock and Load podcast host. Welcome to Lock and Load Podcast. My name is Josh.
And I'm Michelle.
And we're here today to talk to you about 2A issues, but more about us and how we got into the industry. This is sponsored by PatriotWear Holsters and Lock and Load Firearms. Today's episode is all about Michele.
Yay!
So Michele owns PatriotWear Holsters, and she's going to talk to you today about how she got into that. So how'd you get into that, Michele?
Okay. I've been shooting since I was probably about 5 years old. My grandfather introduced me to firearms, and he did the whole education, safety. He had a trap in his basement, so we would shoot down in his basement, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. As I grew up and I got into my 20s, I was of the belief that, I didn't need a permit. I had friends that had guns. I could go to ranges when I wanted to go shooting, and I just didn't feel the need to go out and get a permit at that time because that's the Second Amendment. Okay, end of story, right? So as I got older and I met my husband's dad they would have boys' day shooting at the range. And we would talk about guns. I would go shooting. I enjoyed it, as I said. So as I started watching politics, I started realizing that the Second Amendment was under fire, no pun intended. And so I started paying attention a little bit more. And right before the Sandy Hook tragedy, I had probably about a year before, I started really paying attention to what was going on the political scene as far as national, not so much even on state, but on the national level. And then we had the tragedy in Connecticut and everything kicked into place. I already had my permit in processing at that time. So right after Sandy Hook, I got very, very involved. Jumped in with 2 feet, and I was running. I was not pleased with what Connecticut's legislators thought they needed to do in response. I didn't appreciate the laws that they were passing. And so I started going to CCDL meetings. And in the meantime, I had gotten my permit, right after Sandy Hook. And I started going to these meetings, and I thought I knew a lot walking in, and it turns out I knew a little tiny sliver of what really was going on. So I got very involved in CCDL. I became an executive committee member, then moved up to a board member for a short period of time, and put in several years with CCDL. In that process, I started working at the gun store in Waterbury. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed facilitating people being able to buy a firearm that they were wanting, that they were looking for, and newbies coming in, facilitating what would work for them and that kind of thing. And I found a niche. I was already an instructor, an NRA instructor. I had been teaching classes for a while. I enjoy the education level. I think education is key. There's always things to learn. And I enjoyed passing some of that information on to people who were interested in getting their permits. So shortly after, I shouldn't say shortly, a few years after working at the gun store, I went on a venture with a coworker at the time, and we opened up a gun store together. So I helped him, and the two of us together worked together to open up this gun store. And I learned a lot about the processes of what it takes and what hoops you have to jump through, and the different zoning and the hearings and the FFLs and working with the ATF and all that kind of stuff, which was wonderful. The goods and the bads, I absolutely enjoyed it 100%. And as in life, some things just don't work out. And so that wasn't my niche with that adventure. So I took some time off. I traveled. I taught classes. I worked at different shoots all around the country. I've traveled across the country for 2A rights anyway. And so I did a little bit of that. And then I went back to the gun store, started working there part-time, which then worked into full-time. And I decided I didn't like the holsters that were available to people, for me. I didn't like carrying them. And so even before this whole process started, so probably about 7 years ago, I started learning how to make holsters because I figured there had to be a way to make a Kydex holster that was comfortable and that I wouldn't want to rip off my body the minute I got home. And I would love every single person in this country to carry a gun. And it's a personal thing with many people on how to carry, what's more comfortable. And if you're not comfortable, you're not going to carry. So worked really hard, opened up a business, talked to my husband, told him I wanted to open this up and I wanted to start making holsters. And I wanted to focus on them being comfortable and reliable and have a good draw on them so that they weren't too loose, they weren't too tight, they were just right, as the Three Bears say. And so my husband and I started that business, and it was a part-time thing. I was still working at the gun store, and my husband was still working his job full-time. He was an auto mechanic. And within 6 months of opening the business, my husband quit his job, 6 or 8 months, something like that. And I started scaling back my hours because our business took off so well. Again, it comes back to education. Like even with the holsters, people come in and they don't really know what they want. They don't know what's available. They see what's on a shelf at a gun store and don't realize that there are other belt clips. There are other ways of carrying that aren't necessarily the big ones that are available at every store out there. And
there are so many holsters out there.
There are.
And there's so many crappy holsters out there.
Well, yes, and that's what it came down to is,
And honestly, that's what a lot of stores that they carry those because like they're cheaper from their wholesalers. So like it's a profit aspect, right? If I can go buy this holster for $10 and sell it for $40, cool. I just made $30. I don't care, right? It's shitty plastic. But like, oh, I just made $30. Well, you got to give some quantity or quality.
Well, and that's just it. And you can't blame the gun stores for that. If they're available and they're cheaper option, and it's an option. Yeah. I like to focus on the new gun owners, especially. Yeah. Because they don't have any clue what it means to carry. So they think they're immediately going to put a gun on their hip and it's going to feel like they didn't have a gun on their hip like it did before they were carrying. And that's not the case. There is a learning curve. I tell people all the time, it's sort of like if you never wear a watch or you don't ever wear a suit, okay, and you have to all of a sudden start wearing one of those, it takes a little while.
Yeah, you're carrying a chunk of metal on your hip now.
Correct, and there's that learning curve on it. And, most people who have been shooting for a while and carrying guns have a box, a drawer, a Rubbermaid bin full of holsters that they bought. They thought it was going to be a great idea, and they're not cheap. No. And I know I've spent well over $100 on several holsters, and they sit because I don't want to throw them away. Even though I own a holster company, I still have my bin because I spent money on those things. I don't want to throw them away. And
garbage.
I know.
Or I give them away for free.
And it's wonderful now when customers come back and tell us as a company they'll never buy another holster. It's the most comfortable holster they've ever had. So, and my shop, my office shop, all of it encompassed, is my happy place. I absolutely love going to work every day. It's harder owning a business. You don't shoot as much.
100% of the time?
Mine is closer to 98 to 99%, yes.
Okay.
All right.
You deal with less employees.
Yes.
Being you and Matt.
I do. I have, yeah.
And less public just walking in.
We have quite a bit now coming in. And yes, there's always those that you sit and go, okay, this one doesn't really know what they're looking for. They have an idea in their head, but it's not, there's no way you can facilitate what they want. But you can work through it to find something that will work for them.
Yeah.
You know, in public relations anyway, in just general people, there's days where somebody comes in and you're like, okay, you know, we'll get through this. But all in all, I do love going to work. I love what I do. I can sit. There's nights, I don't know if you know this, there are nights that my husband and I get into such a groove. We've stayed until 2:00 in the morning making holsters, and we just go, holy crap, what time is it? Oh my God, we have to go home. Because we just get moving and we just start going through it. It's like time goes away when we hit our shop.
Yeah.
It's really cool. But a lot of it was all due to the education level and trying to show people and offer people what is available, whether it's teaching classes, like I had mentioned, or the holsters, or the buying of guns. I mean, and then I've gotten into the weeds where I've made a lot of contacts. So when it comes to these laws, when it comes to what's coming down the pike, you know, educating myself on what we have to do or what those laws mean as a gun owner to all of us, and then being able to share it, you know, and that's the other part with this podcast. This is a lot of fun because we're letting the public who watch us get the information and putting it into layman's terms. Because seriously, if you look at some of these gun laws and you read them,
reading an actual bill,
your head is spinning. You have no idea, you know, at the end of the day, you're like, oh my goodness, you know, what does that mean?
There's a lot of big words.
and the where-withins and the these and the,
And like cross-outs, underlines, strikes. Like.
That's a whole different education, is learning how to read those.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
It kind of ties back to at least Lock and Load. How many stores are you wholesaling to?
We wholesale to about,
like, say Connecticut.
Yeah,
I know you have, other states.
In Connecticut we have. Well, at one point we had about 8. I think now we're down to, because not everybody orders all the time, but our regular buyers are probably about 5 or so. Well, yeah, you too. You're awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you are here, so it's a little convenient too.
Well, and that's
how I need this.
Well, that's how I met you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing. Being in this industry, you meet all kinds of different people, and
so let's go back to like our meeting story. I guess I'll go with that. We have a mutual acquaintance.
Yep.
That was working here 2 months maybe.
Yeah,
I knew him for a while. And he was working here for a little bit, and he was like, "Oh, you should get holsters from Michele at PatriotWear." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't feel like I don't really need to carry those. Like, what am I gonna make? Like $5? Like, it's not worth it." And I was like, "Yeah," and I kind of pushed it off, and then he brought it up again, and I pushed it off, and then he brought it up again. I was like, "Fine." So met Michele. Carried some common stuff, right? And I stick with that mostly, but like I think at the time it was like Hellcats because those are popular.
And you had a couple
Glocks, and then I think like the 365 series.
Yep.
So some of the stuff I was really selling a lot of, and then people started to buy them. I was like, okay, so let's expand a little bit. So get a few more SKUs in there.
Yeah.
And now I definitely need to order more.
He is due to order.
Yeah. But now we have a good variety, at least, of inside the waistband, and probably more importantly, I send her business. So if I don't have it, like I'll be like, here's the business card, or if they're on the phone, I'll be like, here's the info, go there. They're locally in Waterbury, which is always cool. So people like that you're local, you're in Connecticut, you're not some random person on Amazon. Because
Correct.
before like I got into or like started carrying a holster, my first holster was on Amazon. My second one was on Amazon. And my third one was by that company we're not going to name that you know what I'm talking about.
You're hurting me.
Yeah, it's okay. But now I only use you. And I have many of them for my different guns that I carry. So
Now, do your customers come back with good feedback on that too?
yeah, I've never had complaints.
Awesome. Awesome.
So we'll go with that. If I don't hear anything, that's a good thing, right?
Well, because I know I get feedback. I didn't know if you did too.
Yeah.
So, no, that's awesome. No, you've been getting to know you. And see, that's, like I said, that's the benefit of being in this industry.
Yeah.
You meet really cool people, and some people are friends. Some people are acquaintances, and then you find every once in a while those people that you really connect with. And that's how I feel about Josh. I love Josh.
Cue the aw button. Yeah, I don't have that button on my soundboard over here.
No, it's made for a great friendship, and
Yeah.
it was one that, thanks to our mutual acquaintance, I don't know that we necessarily would have had that right out the gate.
Probably not.
And it's also, you took a chance on me.
Yeah.
We weren't, when you started carrying us, we weren't really well known.
Yeah.
We're not just doing it as a hobby ever.
The sale always helps that, like, oh yeah, they're right out of Waterbury,
Yep.
And in Southington, that's, 2 towns over, it's a couple exits and you're right there. So if there's an issue, like, they can go there or they can contact you. It's better than just being some random holster company from the internet. Because at least here, this location and how we sell them, you have that hands-on experience.
And if there is a problem, you can send them right to me.
Yeah. And they also take our recommendations too. Like Brian carries them, I carry them. I don't know if Potts does. Diesel does, when he's here.
Yep.
I think Matt does, right? Joey.
Yep.
Joey was trying to, but Joey didn't know the right size of his gun, so
He didn't know what type
of
gun.
gun. Yeah, that was.
It's okay. It happens.
And I'm sure my new guy will once he gets his permit back.
Yes. No.
He didn't lose it, by the way, guys. He was in the military and didn't renew it in time.
It's one of those things where now we sell all over the country.
Yeah.
But when we first started, working together and getting involved together, we were still it was very new.
Yeah.
We had only been open a little while, maybe a year and a half.
So how many states besides Connecticut do you sell to?
We were just talking about that the other day. I think we have hit almost all. I think only like 3 states haven't ordered from us.
Okay, cool.
So we've hit all the states. Then we have some states that order more. Arizona, Florida, believe it or not, Washington State has ordered quite a few. And it's cyclical. It depends on the year, the time is where we'll get different orders from. But, I love it. We get an order in, it's from Indiana. I'm like, okay, cool. I get a custom order. Somebody's calling me from Alabama, and I love it. We have people that send us, because we also have an FFL, so they will send us their firearm with their light and the whole, their setup, and we make a holster and we send it back to the gun store of their choice, and they can pick it up and they get exactly what they're looking for. So, and it's holsters are, people look at them and they're kind of all the same, but when you really get into the weeds of making them, yeah, there's a bunch that are the same, but there's also those new ones and those different ones, and it takes a lot of...
Especially when you add like a light or laser, like that's where it gets...
Well, yeah, and my husband does most of those, but when he gets stumped on something and it's not working right, then we start working together on how to make it better. And, there's always, like you said with the gun store, we always have goals. We set goals I set goals for every quarter. And so mine are littler goals every quarter with a big goal throughout the year. And so far we have either met or exceeded all of our goals, and it's very, very exciting. Yeah. It's someday I hope to be out of Connecticut, but I will still hopefully keep all my Connecticut customers.
She's been saying that since I've met her.
Yeah. Well, my daughter's in college.
Yep.
So, there is that, and she's not ready to be on her own yet. Soon.
Baby bird's got to fly the nest.
Oh, the baby bird will fly the nest.
Whether it's her choosing or not.
No, she's very independent. She's a great kid. I am very lucky. In the grand scheme of things, I was very sick young. They didn't think I'd live past 30 years old.
Wow.
So I look at where I am today and what I am doing today, and I am very, very lucky. I'm very grateful, and I am grateful for my customers. I am grateful for all of my contacts that I've met, and the friends that I've met along the way. I never thought I would be in the gun industry. That was not my thing. When I was in high school, I was going to go to college for forestry.
Oh.
That would have been a whole different life.
Yeah.
I ended up not going due to circumstances that just life.
Yeah.
I did put myself through school, and I went for administrative and business. And then I was a stay-at-home mom for 14 years. And so this is not where I thought I'd be, but I absolutely love it. I can't see myself doing anything else at this point in time. You know, I'm passionate about guns. I'm passionate about gun rights. I am passionate about being a responsible gun owner. And I love being an advocate for our rights. Again, goes back to education. Love that part. And I love being able to facilitate people being able to carry, because, again, my goal would be to have everybody carry a gun.
Yeah.
And be comfortable carrying a gun, not wanting to rip it off their body. Yeah. So, because, crime's not getting any better right now.
No. And
the best thing we can do is make sure that we can take care of ourselves and our families. Yeah. And, it sounds like a very easy task, but it's not. There is so much that goes into it if you're truly going to be a responsible gun owner.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
That's pretty much it.
So, if you want a PatriotWear holster, do you know where to get that, guys? Well, either on Michele's website at
www.patriotwearholsters.com,
or you can go to our link tree in the bio of the video down here somewhere. And in there,
yes,
her website's right there, and there might be a coupon in there. There might not. Who knows? There's a coupon in there to save money on your first order.
Absolutely. And everybody, take advantage of it. If you have questions, let us know. If you're looking for something and you don't see it on the website, contact us. There's a lot of things that we don't do in mass production, so it's not on the website. Like thigh rigs and chest rigs and mid drops and stuff like that. We do those. We just don't have them on the website because they change depending on what the gun is that somebody wants. So
they can fill out that custom order form that's on your website, right?
Correct. Okay. Correct. Absolutely. No, it's exciting. It's exciting.
Well, guys, this episode was sponsored by PatriotWear Holsters and Lock and Load Firearms. My name is Josh.
And I'm Michele.
And thanks for viewing today, guys. We will see you guys in next week's episode.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.